So we've talked a number of times, usually over a few drinks, and we've talked about some of the interesting parts of your career. I'm particularly interested in the time when you had become joint managing director alongside Colin Proudfoot.
Yeah.
But before that, what were you doing?
Well, directly before that, I was vice president of Commodore Inc., the sales company based in Westchester, where all the engineering was done. We did have assembly facility in Westchester, but not really much of one. Yeah, I was vice president, and basically I'd been nagging at Mehdi Ali for probably 2.5 years.
No, you didn't spit when you say that.
No.
I'm trying to think of Beth Richards, who was the technician, engineer, towards the end of Commodore's life, and she's working on the CD32 and all the really sexy stuff.
No, she was working on the CD1200.
Yeah, and actually doing FMV stuff and all sorts, right?
Yeah.
And every time she says Mehdi Ali, she goes Mehdi Ali, and every time she never misses it.
Well, the problem is if I did that, I'd have an absolutely dry mouth forever. No, Mehdi. I've been nagging Mehdi to let me loose in America because America was underperforming by a zillion. It was incredible how bad, and nobody knew why. But I've been nagging him, so let me loose. I can bloody sort it out one way or another. And that was an interesting time actually because when I arrived, I had a team of people already. I had 3 sales guys and a team of marketing people, all very good people. So we had a meeting all on our own in one of the boardrooms. And I said, all right, guys, what's going on? Tell me the truth. And they said, well, we can't sell anything. Excuse me. And I said, what do you mean you can't sell anything? And they said, we can't. What do you mean? Well, our customers are not paying their bills, so therefore we're not allowed to sell them anything. I said, well, why aren't they paying the bills? We don't know. It's absolutely true. So anyway, I said, okay, look, I need to get to the bottom of it. So I said to them, make some appointments, and I'll come along with you, and we'll find out what's going on. And the very first place we went to was actually Sears in Chicago. And I can remember it like it was yesterday. I think it was about the 13th floor of Sears Tower. And we sat in the boardroom, and I think there was 12 executives of Sears all around this boardroom table. It was my sales guy, Steve Salas, and me. So I sat down, introduced myself, said, I've been with Commodore for 9 years or whatever it was at the time. And, I've come to the US to try and get business moving and what have you. And I said, all I ask of you guys is for the truth, and I'll give you the truth. And I said, we're a company of integrity, and my word is my bond. So I said, do you mind if we start by asking you a very direct question? Would you mind telling me why you're not paying your bills? Very simple, Mr. Pleasance. We're waiting for you to come and take all our stock back. Okay. I said, well, 9 years at Commodore, I've never known us to be a lending library. Right? Exactly what I said. And I said, anyway, next thing you know, they pushed a letter across the table to me, face down. And it was a signed letter by Jim Dion, who was the president of sales of Commodore Inc., sales company. And it was a sale or return agreement. And guess what it was for? CD-TVs. He'd laden them with CD-TVs. Now, let's be honest about it. CD-TV is a product that was so far ahead of its time, even hardened, technical people found it difficult to sell. Can you imagine the people in Sears who find it difficult to ring up a bloody till and put something in a plastic bag, them selling the CD-TV?
We can't say that these days, by the way.
Well, no, I just did.
We can't.
I felt my lips move.
It's not allowed, is it? Right? No, we can't say it anymore.
Okay, well, I'll stop my lips.
You're a bit older, so you can say it.
Yeah, I've earned the right. I'm pensionable. Anyway, so there am I staring at this letter, which is signed by Jim Dion, the president of the sales company, offering sale or return on CD-TVs, and they wanted them out. Don't blame them. They should never have been sold them in the first place. This, by the way, happened. Every store I went to was the same deal. Now, what had happened, of course, is that Jim Dion had obviously made up his quarterly quota and claimed his commission and bonus on all these sales, but he wouldn't take them back because it would have exposed him. So there's a situation where I'm faced with, what the hell do I do here? I had to really think hard. Anyway, I said, I'll be honest with you, you should never have been sold that product. It was ridiculous, and that's a mistake on our part. And I said, we are honourable, and I will make sure that we take that product back. I think it was something like $460,000 worth. And I said, look, the crazy thing is that we've got products that you should be selling. You know, we've got the Amiga 500, and it's doing really, really well. It's flying out the door. And I said, you guys should be selling that. And I said, I don't really want to start my career in the US with a big negative on my books. I said, how about I'll take all that stock back and you give me an order for Amiga 500s of the same value, so at least I'm not starting with a negative, it's neutral. And if you do that for me, I will produce a pack specifically for Sears that you can sell all on your own. And luckily they went for it.
Was that in the, like a Batman pack? But
Yeah. But it was. I actually had it all designed by the people who did all the work for me in the UK anyway. But we had it produced in the US because it was cheaper than shipping it. But anyway, cut a long story short, so I did this, and of course, by that quarter end, all I'd got was neutral figures. I hadn't got any sales because I'd taken all the CDTVs back. Now, Mehdi Ali didn't know anything about this, and it just happened that at the quarter-end meeting I should have gone to, the sales meeting in New York, I was in Manhattan. I was on holiday. My two sons are from the UK. And I used to have a boat, which I kept down at Rehoboth Beach, and I was actually on the boat. And anyway, so he's in this meeting with Jim Dion, and Ali rings me up. What the F is this? Well, this was product. And I said, what are you asking me for? He said, well, because you're the person who's taken all this product back. I said, no. I said, will you just ask Jim Dion to hand you the envelope I asked him to give you? Which he did. And, of course, inside there was copies of all of the sale or return agreements, because Mehdi didn't know anything about it. So Mehdi's sort of shouting off at me, and I said, look, Mehdi, I've now got us back trading with everybody in the US. Take it or leave it. We have no option but to take back that product because it was written in writing. And I said, but I've now got this trading with everybody. And I tell you what, I was glad I wasn't in that room because he would have gone berserk. But the thing is, this is very typical of Commodore. They didn't audit anything, didn't know anything about this. How can you run a business if you don't even know what you've sold and what you haven't sold? So that was US. And we started trading. And then, of course, what happened was, after I'd been trading with them for a while, I went to Mehdi and I said, right, my job here for the moment is done. What are you talking about? I said, I can't do any more here. I can't sell any more to any of the customers. What are you talking about? I said, look, Mehdi, you and I both know we've got the Amiga 1200 coming in the next couple of months, 3 months, whatever it's going to be. And if I sell them any more 500s, the moment the 1200 comes out, they're going to say, take them back, because they'll feel that there's an obligation there, even though there isn't. I said, however, if I leave now and do work something else, if they reorder 500s because they need them, that's their problem, not mine, which makes business sense. And that's what happened. So I ended up leaving, and the plan was I was going to go back to the US once the 1200s were launched. But in fact, I went back to the CEL business, so all the international business I was doing, which had taken a bit of a tumble since I wasn't involved with it. And then the next thing I know, I'm summoned back to the UK and forced into the MD ship, which I'd already turned down once before. I was forced into it, so I never went back to the US.
I was always very intrigued. You had the joint managing director with Colin. Why did they do a joint managing director? It's quite unusual.
I did it.
It's your idea.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is that, I know what I'm good at. And I can read a balance sheet and all that stuff, but I'm not a financial person. I can't control. And on the very basis that the reason I was summoned back was because Commodore International was in big trouble, and we needed to gather every single penny we could get in. And I'm not qualified for that. So I said, I'll take this role on, but I want to be sole control of sales and marketing because that's what I'm good at. And Colin was already working there. I think he was a director. But he was already working. I said, make Colin co-MD with me, and between us we can get us out of trouble.
Yeah, you obviously didn't do a very good job, did you?
No,
because you made lots of losses.
Yeah,
UK company made lots of losses.
We did. We had.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, I can explain that. This is I think it's less prevalent now because the tax authorities have gone on to it. But Commodore used to play.
I don't know. Google, come on, Apple.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, but
Ireland. Oh, I didn't say that.
Commodore used to play the transfer pricing game, and I'll give you an example. These are just figures; they're not necessarily the right figures, but you'll understand what I mean. So Commodore UK would buy its product. Let's say we bought Amiga 500s and we bought them for $200, or let's say pounds. That's easier for me. So if we bought them from Commodore International, we paid £200 for them. Now we would warrant them, we would market them, VAT and everything else, and we would sell them for £400. Take away what our expenses were, and that was our profit. So if we then make a profit and we're selling a lot of Amigas and 64s and everything else, and then suddenly the taxman sort of wants to grab at us. So all you then do is instead of paying £200 and selling it for £400, you're suddenly paying £400, and every one you sell, you're making a loss because you paid £400 for it. So Commodore International was making the profit at the point of sale from us, but we weren't. So we ended up with, I can tell you exactly, at the time when we declared bankruptcy in the UK, which was 14 months after Commodore went under, we tried to sell Commodore UK as a going concern to Escom, and the big carrot was that we had £6 million worth of tax credits, which meant if they'd have carried on our business, putting their business through Commodore UK, they could have claimed that. That would have meant
so
probably...
they'd have paid no tax until they got more than £6 million profit.
Absolutely, yeah. And it was a no-brainer, but they said, we'll only buy Commodore UK if you and Colin stay. And there's no way I want to work for them, and nor did Colin, because they weren't ethical people. And then the guy said, Manfred Schmidt, he said, how are you going to feel having to lose, all your people are going to lose their jobs? And we said, you've just explained why we don't want to work for you, because that's exactly the kind of attitude that we don't want to work with.
On a more positive note, right, how many Amigas do you think your division, your operating division, your company sold?
Ooh. Do you know, I honestly don't know, but what I can tell you that I did a sort of back of the envelope calculation one day about how many computers I think I sold, and I'm talking about everything from 16s to plus 4s and Amigas and 64s. And I think personally, not my team, personally, I think I sold 2.4 million computers in 12 years. Not bad, is it?
Now, so which was the most, I guess, the most successful division of Commodore with selling Amiga computers?
Oh, Commodore UK, without any shadow of a doubt. Once we launched the bundle concept, and the numbers just went through the roof. We made Commodore the trendy product. The Amiga 500 was the trendy product that everybody wanted. Yeah, very thrilling actually.
But you started selling pets, didn't you?
Yeah, again, I've mentioned all along that I honestly believe that Commodore was always destined to go bankrupt because they never, ever had a business plan of any kind. And I can prove that because I was recruited specifically to sell pets into the retail market. Business product into retail. This was before PCs. And I was there 3 months doing research, deciding who I was going to sell to and getting everything ready. And then they rang me up. And they said, I'd been there about 3 months, a bit less. And they said, oh, your numbers come up. 64 is going crazy. We need somebody to head up national accounts, looking after the big boys, and you're it. And they said, oh, and by the way, we haven't got enough pet product to sell into retail anyway. I'd been recruited to do that job. They hadn't even got enough product. There was never any business plan. And so what would happen is that they'd recruit some new manager of engineering, head of engineering, and he'd go along and say, what are you working on? Oh, stop doing that, nobody wants that, do this. And then the next person, oh, stop doing that, do this. So there was stop, start on all sorts of things. And a lot of the things that the engineers were developing were what they knew was needed, but they'd be told, don't do that anymore, because the people who ran the business didn't understand it. And that happened a lot. And they stumbled from one crisis to the next. Really, really was. I mean, a really good example of all of that is the bloody +4, for goodness sake. You know, that was designed by a retarded monkey, and that's not being fair to the monkey.
I think you can say that, unless the monkey's a reference to somebody.
Yeah, I'm just aping around, really. That's all. You know.
Well, I won't repeat it. It's all right. I think it's fair to say that. I mean, there was the original chipset, the enhanced chipset, the ARGA chip, the AJ chipset, the AAA, which never came out. But by the time the AAA was coming along, all the other systems, or graphics systems, had caught up and were starting to surpass the Amiga.
Yeah, but I mean, the sad thing is really the biggest tragedy of all with ESCOM was that they let technology go that was absolutely outstanding technology. And if I've spoken about this before, I apologise. But Commodore engineers, with particularly a guy called Dr. Ed Hepler, was working on a project. He had taken an HP RISC-based core, to which he added a 3D rendering engine, 5.1 surround sound stereo, which in 1994 was sensational, Blitter and various other things. And the performance of this thing was unbelievable. And all I can tell you now is that there is nothing on the market today that comes anywhere close to it. And ESCOM just let it go. They just let all the engineers go and didn't follow it up. But they bought it. They had the rights to it. Now, how crazy is that?
I think history will show that ESCOM 1 year later were out of business themselves. So things perhaps weren't right within ESCOM anyway.
No, well, I mean, they didn't know their own identity. Were they manufacturers of PCs? Were they distributors of PCs? Were they retailers? They bought all those bloody Rumbelow stores, hundreds of stores. And the crazy thing is that in their own stores, they never sold Amigas.
I can remember buying my first PC, so it must have been before.
I didn't think they had electricity then.
They did. Just I think there's mice and wheels and things. But it was ESCOM, so it must have been 95, 96. So my first PC was an ESCOM PC, because, they owned Amiga. So I went to the ESCOM store and I bought this PC, and some guy came in, and they had all these lovely new Amiga 1200s they'd relaunched. And they're all sitting there in boxes. And a customer came in and said, "Look, I want one of those Amiga 1200s." And the sales guy said, "Oh, no, you don't want that. That's just a toy. Let me show you this PC over here." And the price of the Amiga 1200 was actually quite high, but it was with all the software. And with the PC was just the PC. And, of course, you'd have to buy all the software on top, he said. And he was given the sales pitch on the PC. And I jumped in. I said, "Well, actually, that can do much more than that can do, because you've got all the software, the graphics pack, the word processor, the games. And you want it for the kids, they'll love that. They won't love that." He wasn't very happy with me. But apparently that was common in the stores. Actually ESCOM branded stores in the UK. They actually didn't sell the Amiga. I don't know whether there are ESCOM stores in Ireland. No.
I don't recall any anyway.